Hello, and welcome to the Software on Demand workshop of Introduction to Python using Jupyter Notebook. In this workshop series, we're going to talk about what is Python in Jupyter Notebook, where to download Python in Jupyter Notebook using the Anaconda distribution, a little bit about the Jupyter Notebook environment. We'll go through how to edit and recode data, run different statistical tests, and create some basic visualizations. This is video one. Specifically, in video one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go give an overview of the scenario, explain what is Python and Jupyter Notebook, where to download Python and Jupyter Notebook, talk about what is a module and how to install them, an overview of the Jupyter Notebook environment, the foundations of Python language, and how to create objects. So in our scenario, and this is all in the same Google Drive where all the information is, we're going to be interested in the relationship between the amount of corruption in a country and the quality of their economy. So if you want to follow along, this has all the information that we'll be using today. There's also going to be the annotated code. So for this one, again, we're interested in the relationship between the amount of corruption in a country and the quality of their economy. For this question, we're lucky because data already exists. We'll use the World Development Indicators, or WDI, which is compiled annually by the World Bank. We're using data from a past year and have simplified the data set, but you can find the full data set at World Bank's website. We're also lucky because World Bank saves the data in a way that makes it easy to open. And often, when you're using data sets, such as old census data, it can take a lot of effort to transform the data into a usable format. And of course, there's never a guarantee that someone else has created the data set that you want in advance. So often, the first steps in the research project is to spend a long time looking up the values to create the data that you want to use. Within the WDI dataset, we'll be focusing on corrupt and GDPPC. Corrupt is an index of perceived corruption within a country's government. Citizens were surveyed and asked questions like, would you need to plan bribes to start a local business? Note that corrupt is reverse coded, so that higher scores equal low perceived corruption, ranging from 0 to 10. The second variable, gross domestic product per capita, or GDPPC, indicates how well the economy is doing scaled for the population size of a country. For example, it might not be interesting that Botswana produces less than Brazil overall, but it might be interesting to note that Botswana produces more per citizen than Brazil in 2014. Note that in using these variables from the WDI dataset, we've given over the responsibility to determining what is corruption and what is quality economy to how the World Bank operationalizes these constructs. We've allowed for dynamic concepts to become really simple numbers. However, this allows us to move quickly into later stages of analysis, which has its advantages then. So that's going to be the data set we'll be working with today. So a little bit about where to download and install Jupyter Notebook in Python. So what you want to do is you want to go open up a browser and go to Anaconda Python, and then click on download. So we'll go ahead and go to products, go to distribution. You're going to enter in your email address, agree, and then submit. And then once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and get an email address. You get an email that you can then download Anaconda distribution. From this, you're going to want to select the specific one. So it's going to, for this machine, it's going to say using a Windows installer, but you can pick and choose whatever one you're using. And then you're going to go through the setup, choosing all the defaults. Once that's installed, what you're going to end up doing, let me go ahead and close this down and close that. Once you have it fully installed, I'm going to go and click on the Start menu, and I'm going to go into All Apps, and I'm going to try to find Anaconda 3. And I'm going to go ahead and we could choose the notebook here, but I'm going to click on Anaconda Navigator just to show you what's in there. The nice thing with Anaconda distribution is it is lots of the bells and whistles, so most of the modules are already installed, which is great, so you don't have to do a lot of pip commands. For more information about installing, while that's loading, at the bottom of the last page of this document, there's information about Oh, here we go. About installing Python. I'm going to update this. It's actually the latest stable version is 3.12. If you need to do pip commands to install additional modules, has some information about that as well, and some different IDEs. For this one, we're going to be using Jupyter Notebook for this one, but there's also Spyder, there's PyCharm, there's a bunch of different variations that you can use. Really just pick and choose what one if you want to use. Anaconda is probably the easiest way to download it. We'll be using 3 series rather than the 2 because the 2 is no longer supported. So while that's loading, right, here we go. So it does have PyCharm included. That's a different IDE or a different way of using Python. You can also use base Python too. It's just not as user-friendly, but it's perfectly okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and find the Jupyter Notebook. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Jupyter Notebook. And the nice thing is this is a great way to annotate code and run it in a nice notebook fashion. It's human readable, so it's great. It's also going to be web-based, but you don't have to be connected to the internet to use it. So what's going to happen is it's going to launch a browser. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and give it a second. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go locate, since I already have everything downloaded, I'm going to find my Jupyter Notebook folder, which has my Jupyter Notebook here in the data set we're going to be using. But let's say I wanted to create a new Jupyter Notebook, and this is my first time using it. I would click on New, and then click on Notebook. I'm going to go ahead and select that I want a Python 3 kernel. Click on Select, and I can change this to my awesome Python script, and click on Rename. So the nice thing here is we have an input text. So I could do something like create an object, x equals 1, and then I can run that code, and then print x. When we run that, these are all inputs, and then it's going to have an output here. So what we can also then do is I can add a new cell. I can also do Shift Enter on Windows. We'll also create a new one as well. I can change this from a coding, which is going to assume here, to a markdown. So with it being markdown, this is a comment. We can also do with a hashtag or pound symbol, this is also a comment. So when we run this, it's not going to do anything, it's just going to be marked down, so it just comments. So you can annotate this, which is fantastic, but you can also annotate in code as well, and Python, the Jupyter Notebook knows that it's a comment. So we can also kind of change some of the different features here. So we can, a bunch of different stuff we can do. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to just switch over, and I'm going to open up the intro one that we're going to be using today. So a little bit about Python. So Python is an object-oriented computer language. Everything is stored on the computer in the computer as an object or in the session. So an object it could be a list, it could be a single value, it could be a list of strings or numbers, it could be a data frame, it could be regression results. An object is really whatever you make of it. It's critical to really understand different types of objects so you know how Python works. And we'll be covering some of the basic ones in this one. It's also, whenever you start, you always want to make sure that you import modules at the start of this. This helps with others who are using your code so they know what packages they might need to be installed if they're using a different distribution as well. So here we have NumPy for scientific computing. We're going to be shorting abbreviations here for later on in the code, and we'll talk more about that when we get to some of the different methods. We'll also be using pandas for data structures manipulation. For scientific computing, SciPy. For data visualization, we're using matplotlib. And then we have some basic stats functions. We're going to be just importing specific functions from statistics. And then the API we'll be using the OLS from that. So we're going to go ahead and we can run it. We can also run things out of sequence if we really wanted to. So I can go ahead and rerun this. And it's going to change the ordering here. It's fine. We can also create duplications if we wanted to. We can delete cells. We can add a cell above or add a cell below. Oops, let me go ahead and undo that. I'll just recreate it. So D equals 4. Let me go ahead and just rerun that. Okay. So now that we have this set up, the big thing with Python for libraries and modules is base Python has limited functions, but many of the different libraries or packages or modules are available for users to import, and it has additional functions that really improves the functionality of Python. So we have NumPy, SciPy, Matplotlib. So those are going to be some of the big ones here. The nice thing is we're not going to have to set working directory because we're working out of the specific folder, so it's not going to be an issue to have to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and skip down a little bit to some basics. So for the different objects, again, this is an object-oriented language, so we're going to talk through some different ones. First one is assign a number. So we're creating an object called D, and we're assigning the value of 4 to that. When we use D here, it's saying it's 4. We can also do something like print D, and when we run that, it's also 4. So having the name of the object or saying print the object name, it's going to do the same thing. We also have floating numbers, which means it has a decimal point. So we go ahead and run this. It has 3.4. Let me go ahead and just checking the features. Sometimes if you end up having where it gets stuck in a loop, you can go ahead and just restart the kernel. I'm going to go ahead and restart and clear all output of all cells. We're just going to create a quick clean session of this. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep on doing this and run, 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 run. And you can keep on clicking this and it'll go down to the next one. So now we're at create a list. So when we're creating a list, it's the most flexible format, so we can take numbers, strings, most Python types, but it also allows for duplicates. In addition, the element can be ordered and you can change the ordering and change the values here. So we're creating an object called x here, and we have square brackets. That's to denote a list. I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we can go ahead and print. So I'm going to say, give me the length of how many, what's the length of x, or how many values of x within the list, and print that out. On Windows, you can also press Control Enter, and that will run this out for you. So here we have 10 because we have 10 items. We can also print out by index. So we can do, if index is 2, 0 to 4. And so I'm going to go ahead and run this cell. And I'm going to go ahead and split this up a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and cut these just so we can kind of see what's going on, because having it all in one, not the best. So when we say the position 2 or position index of 2 in x, that's actually 3 because position index in Python starts at 0. So we have 0, 1, 2. So 2 is actually the value of 3. Position 0 is going to be our first value, or technically position 0 is 1. We have everything before position 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We also can do -2. So we'll go backwards. So -1, -2, that's 9. We can also create a tuple. A tuple is an immutable list. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So immutable means that we're not able to have it go through and make changes to it. So actually, let me go ahead and add a quick loop in here. So before we get to tuple, so we're going to have it go range of x. So it's going to be range of 10. And if it's 1, continue. And it's going to skip ahead. And if it's greater than 5, it's going to stop and it's going to print. Let's go ahead and run this. Unexpected for, oh, as we have to indent. So in Python, it's really important to indent because it lets it know what's going on. So let me go ahead and just fix these indents so they're correct. There we go. And now, there we go. So it's going to print out. It's going to skip one. And then it's going to go ahead and break F5. Now you may get this here too. So rather than is, you can use equals equals. And then that's going to go ahead and fix that error. It's just giving you a warning. It still worked, but we'll go ahead and fix that. So going back to tuples, mutable list. So the nice thing here is that it's ordered, so you can access it by position. However, you can't change the elements. You can't change position because it's locked. So it's essentially a locked list. So we can go ahead and we can run this. We have B. We can also print out the length. Go ahead and break this up a little bit. So we can run that, length of 4, and position 2 is the value of 3. Great. So Python can also work with string variables. So we can do things like assign an object called H as hello workshop attendees. Now, if we start with a double quote, we need to end with a double quote. We can't mix and match. So that's really important. If you mix and match this, it's going to give you an error. We can also say value of I, saying have it for with Python yet, and we can print the two together. So when we do this, it's going to print both of these strings together. We can also create a dictionary, which is good for grouping elements. For this example, each group of elements starts with the group indicator, movie name, and then the episode number. This makes it a really convenient way to structure data frames in Python. So we're going to start with creating an empty dictionary here. And then we're going to go ahead and say each of the movies and put a corresponding episode name here. So we're going to go ahead and run that. And then we can print out Star Wars: A New Hope. So that way we have, when we use our method of get, it's going to say what it is. So we can, let me go ahead and I'm going to add another here too and just say Star Wars. We print that out. We have each of the movies and the corresponding values. So we have our keys and our corresponding episodes are in there too. We can then also create a, actually with, so this is our value. Yeah, episode 1 value, episode 2 is a value, and our specific keys within our dictionary. So we can also create a loop here too. So for this, when we do the loop, we can print out each of the movie titles and the episode numbers for this loop. And there we go. If you're new to Python, we can also do things like Python. So it's always good to read the documents, dictionary. I don't use a whole lot of dictionaries, but we kind of look at this. We have information here. What kind of breaks it down. So we have our key and our value, key, value. And we can go ahead and create this. So there's also the Python docs. This is going to be your go-to resource because it is extremely detailed. And we can kind of talk about different lists. You can append things you can do with different lists, dictionaries, tuples. So this is a really great, we have looping techniques, conditional operators, which we'll talk about soon. But it's going to be a good kind of thing to kind of have open and check out. So this is going to be concluding the first video. We're going to stop here, and in video 2, we're going to open up a data set and work with the data set. I will see you in the next video.